The Watchers below. The Correction observation post on Europa's dark side had remained undetected for 300 years. Commander Vextel stood before the holographic display, his crystalline exoskeleton reflecting the soft blue light of Jupiter looming above. The display showed their target, Earth, a planet that had fascinated and frustrated the Correction Imperium since they first discovered it. Another primitive nuclear test, second observer Melthar reported, her sensor tendrils wavering in disappointment. Still using fission, they haven't even mastered basic fusion technology. Vextel's facial crystals shifted in what passed for a smile among his kind. 3 centuries of watching humanity fumble with primitive technology had convinced him and his predecessors that Earth would be an easy conquest when the time came. The Imperium needed new breeding worlds, and Earth's biosphere was perfect, once the indigenous population was removed, of course. What bothered him, though, was how quickly humans had progressed from horse-drawn carriages to primitive spaceflight. Most species took twice as long to make similar advances, but surely that was just an aberration. Meanwhile, in a subterranean laboratory beneath the Atacama Desert, Dr. Elena Santos stared at her quantum detection array in disbelief. The pattern was there again. A clear signal hidden in what everyone else dismissed as background radiation. She'd been tracking it for months, correlating data from observatories worldwide. Dr. Santos, her assistant Marco called from the doorway. General Chen is here. Elena quickly saved her data and straightened her lab coat. She'd requested this meeting weeks ago, but hadn't expected the head of Earth's defense initiative to come in person. The general was an imposing figure, her silver hair cropped short, eyes sharp and analytical. Doctor, Chen nodded. Your message said you found something important. Elena gestured to her displays. We're being watched, General, and they think we can't see them. She brought up a 3-dimensional map of the solar system, overlaid with what appeared to be noise to the untrained eye. But within that noise, patterns emerged. Patterns that shouldn't exist naturally. Look here, Elena pointed to a cluster of signals near Europa. They're using some kind of quantum-based cloaking technology. Advanced, yes, but they made a crucial mistake. They assumed we follow the same technological path they did. Chen studied the display intently. Explain. Most civilizations probably develop quantum technology after mastering fusion and antimatter. But we took a different path. My team's gravity wave detectors were originally designed to study dark matter. But they showed us something else. Artificial quantum fluctuations. Someone's hiding out there, using technology they think is beyond our ability to detect. And they have no idea we can see them. Chen mused, a slight smile playing at her lips. Exactly. They're using quantum fields to bend light around their installations, but those fields create tiny gravitational distortions. Distortions we can track with equipment they probably consider too primitive to be a threat. Chen was silent for a long moment, studying the data. How long have they been there? Based on our analysis of historical gravitational data, at least 300 years. And General, they're not just observing. The energy signatures are changing. They're preparing for something. 300 years, Chen repeated softly. All that time, thinking we were blind. She turned to Elena. Dr. Santos, I'm about to show you something very few people know exists. Because while our visitors have been watching us, we've been preparing too. Elena followed the general to a secure terminal, her mind racing with possibilities. As the screen came to life, her eyes widened. The technical specifications on display showed weapons systems and defensive capabilities she'd never dreamed possible. Welcome to Project Nightfall, Doctor, Chen said. And thank you for confirming what we've long suspected. Our visitors think they're being clever, hiding in plain sight. But humanity has never been as primitive as we appear. In their hidden base on Europa, Commander Vextel gave the order to begin invasion preparations, completely unaware that every transmission was being monitored by systems his people considered impossible for humans to develop. The game of deception cut both ways. and humanity had been playing it far better than their watchers realized. The pieces were set. The Corrections thought they were preparing a surprise invasion of a primitive world. Instead, they were about to discover just how dangerous humanity could be when underestimated. Signal in the noise. The Correction invasion fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Kuiper Belt, their massive ships ghosting silently through the void. 5,000 vessels strong, each one capable of reducing a continent to ash. To their sensors, the solar system appeared nearly empty, just a scattered collection of primitive satellites and space stations orbiting a handful of worlds. Fleet Commander Zarkak stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dawn, watching tactical displays track the movements of Earth's crewed spacecraft. Their surveillance posts had documented every aspect of human technology for centuries. Primitive chemical rockets, basic ion engines, rudimentary AI systems, nothing that could possibly threaten a Correction battle fleet. Status of the observation post, he demanded, still maintaining position on Europa, Commander. No indication that the humans have detected their presence. Zarkax's crystalline features shifted in satisfaction. The humans were exactly as primitive as their long-term surveillance suggested. This would be a simple operation: neutralize their minimal defensive capabilities, establish orbital superiority, and begin planetary pacification. The Imperium would have its new breeding world within days. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, in a facility few humans knew existed, Elena Santos and General Chen watched the invasion fleet's arrival on their quantum detection grid. The alien ships showed up clearly, massive distortions in the quantum field that they thought rendered them invisible. They're proceeding exactly as predicted, Chen noted, studying the fleet's formation. They think their stealth systems are perfect. Elena nodded, monitoring the data streams from sensors hidden throughout the solar system. Their technology is incredibly advanced, but they're so confident in their superiority that they're not even looking for alternative detection methods. They don't realize that what they consider background noise is actually our sensor network. The facility hummed with activity as technicians and officers monitored every aspect of the approaching fleet. Humanity had spent decades preparing for this moment, developing technologies along paths the Corrections had never considered. Status of the gravity lens array, Chen asked. Online and aligned, Elena reported. All 36 focal points are synchronized. We can trigger a system-wide gravitational lens effect on your command. Chen smiled grimly. And our quantum ghost fleet, ready for deployment. The AI networks are primed and waiting. As far as their sensors will be able to tell, they'll be facing crude chemical rockets and primitive kinetic weapons. They'll never see our real capabilities until it's too late. In high orbit above Mars, hidden in the quantum noise that the Corrections dismissed as meaningless, humanity's true defense fleet waited. Not the primitive vessels the aliens could detect, but something far more sophisticated. Ships that manipulated gravity itself, weapons that could turn the enemy's quantum technology against them. Commander Zarkax ordered his fleet into attack formation, supremely confident in their technological superiority. The humans had barely reached their moon using chemical rockets. Their satellites were primitive, their space stations defenseless. This would be a glorious victory for the Imperium. Begin the primary attack sequence, he commanded. Tactical, target their primitive defense installations first. Communications, prepare to broadcast our demands for surrender. But in the quantum noise their sensors ignored as background radiation, humanity's real defense grid was coming online. Decades of preparation were about to pay off. The Corrections thought they were launching a surprise attack against a primitive species. Instead, they were flying straight into humanity's carefully laid trap. Elena watched the alien fleet's approach on her quantum displays, then turned to General Chen. They're passing the outer marker. Gravity lens array is ready for activation. Chen nodded. Send the signal to all commands. Operation Looking Glass is now active. Let's show our visitors what humanity is really capable of. Throughout the solar system, hidden quantum transmitters powered up, creating a web of gravitational distortions that the Correction's sensors would never detect, until it was far too late. The trap was set. Now it was time to spring it. The greatest fleet the Correction Imperium had ever assembled was about to learn a harsh lesson about underestimating humanity. They thought they were the hunters. They were about to discover they were the prey. The hammer falls. The Correction fleet's first strike was textbook perfect. A coordinated barrage of quantum-accelerated plasma that would overwhelm any known defensive system. 5,000 ships fired simultaneously, their weapons turning space itself into a corridor of destruction, aimed at Earth's primitive defense installations. Commander Zarkax watched with satisfaction as the barrage approached Earth. Their sensors showed no meaningful defensive response, just as expected from such a primitive species. A few pathetic chemical rockets launched from the surface, their trajectories easy to calculate and dismiss. Primary strike impact in 30 seconds, his tactical officer reported. No significant defensive measures detected. Excellent. Zarkax's crystalline features shifted in what passed for a smile. Prepare the second wave. He never finished the sentence. At that exact moment, humanity revealed its first surprise. The gravity lens array activated. 36 hidden installations throughout the solar system created a web of warped spacetime, bending the Correction's own attack back upon them. Their quantum-accelerated plasma followed the curved space, arcing around Earth in impossible trajectories. Impossible, Zarkax's tactical officer shouted. The humans don't have this level of technology. They can't. The plasma barrage slammed into the Correction fleet's rear ships. 30 vessels vanished instantly, their own weapons proving their undoing. But that was just the beginning. In the underwater command center, Elena Santos monitored the quantum field distortions as General Chen gave the order. Deploy the Ghost Fleet. Show them what humanity has really been working on. Throughout the solar system, ships emerged from what the Corrections had dismissed as background radiation. Not the crude chemical rockets they detected earlier, but vessels that seemed to defy physics itself. They moved without apparent propulsion, surrounded by fields that bent gravity into weapons. What are these readings? Zarkax demanded, watching his tactical display explode with impossible data. They're ships. They're not using any technology we recognize. Because we didn't follow their path, Elena explained to her staff as they watched the battle unfold. While they mastered quantum fields and plasma weapons, we explored gravity manipulation and dimensional physics. They went up the tech tree. We went sideways. The Ghost Fleet engaged, demonstrating capabilities that the Corrections had never conceived possible. Human ships didn't fire traditional weapons. Instead, they created localized gravity wells that crushed Correction vessels like aluminum cans. They generated field effects that caused quantum drives to implode, turning the aliens' own advanced technology into a liability. Counterattack. Zarkax ordered, his confidence shattered but training taking over. Full spread, all weapons. The Correction fleet's response was impressive. A devastating display of firepower that would have annihilated any conventional opposition. But humanity had planned for this moment for decades. The quantum Ghost Fleet split apart, each ship seeming to exist in multiple places simultaneously. Correction targeting systems, designed to track objects in normal spacetime, couldn't lock onto vessels that technically occupied several dimensions at once. Don't you understand yet? General Chen murmured, watching the battle unfold. We saw you coming centuries ago. While you watched our rockets and satellites, thinking us primitive, we were developing technology you never imagined possible. The Correction fleet's formation began to break apart as more ships succumbed to gravitational weapons they had no defense against. Their quantum-based systems, which they had considered the pinnacle of technological achievement, were being turned against them by a species they had dismissed as barely space-capable. Impossible, Zarkax whispered, watching his mighty fleet torn apart by forces he couldn't even understand. They were primitive. We watched them for centuries. Status report, Chen demanded, her voice calm despite the chaos unfolding on the tactical displays. Gravity lens array operating at full capacity, Elena reported. Ghost fleet reporting minimal losses. The Corexian fleet is in disarray. Their formations are breaking down, and their attempts to retreat are being disrupted by our dimensional anchors. The battle that was supposed to be a simple conquest had turned into something else entirely, a demonstration of how dangerous it was to assume that technological progress only followed one path. The Corexians had expected to find a primitive species barely capable of spaceflight. Instead, they found humanity waiting for them, with weapons and defenses they couldn't even comprehend. And the battle was far from over. As the Corexian fleet struggled to adapt to this impossible situation, humanity prepared to reveal even more of its hidden capabilities. The real question wasn't whether Earth would survive. It was whether any of the invaders would survive to warn others about the terrible mistake of underestimating humanity. Paradigm shift. The Corexian fleet was in chaos. Nearly a third of their ships had been destroyed or disabled by weapons they couldn't even understand. Commander Zarkak stood amid the wreckage of his tactical center, crystalline features cracked from the stress of multiple gravitational attacks. The mighty Eternal Dawn, flagship of the Imperium's greatest fleet, drifted powerless in space, its quantum drives collapsed into dimensional singularities by human weapons. How? He demanded, watching more of his ships fall to the invisible forces tearing through his fleet. How did we miss this? In the underwater command center, Elena Santos studied the quantum readings with a mix of professional satisfaction and personal awe. They still don't understand, she told General Chen. They're trying to analyze our technology using their own framework. It's like trying to understand a submarine by studying aircraft design. The remaining Corexian ships had clustered together in a defensive formation, their overlapping quantum fields creating what they believed to be an impenetrable barrier. Under normal circumstances, against any conventional opponent, they would have been right. They're adapting, Chen observed, watching the tactical display. But they're still thinking linearly. Ready the Phase 2 response. Elena nodded. Quantum Ghost Fleet is in position. Gravity lens array recalibrated. Ready to demonstrate why thinking in just 3 dimensions is a serious limitation. The Corexian defense sphere was impressive. Thousands of ships generating a quantum field so powerful it could have deflected the energy of a small sun. But they were about to learn that humanity hadn't just developed different weapons. They'd developed an entirely different way of thinking about space, time, and warfare itself. Send the message, Chen ordered. Across every frequency the Corexians could detect in perfect Imperial standard. Humanity's response echoed. Your technology is impressive, but limited. You developed quantum manipulation to its logical conclusion. We chose to ask what lay beneath quantum mechanics itself. Would you like to surrender now, or do we need to demonstrate further? Zarkax's response was immediate and predictable. Launch all remaining weapons, full-spectrum quantum cascade. Show these primitives. The rest of his order was lost as humanity's ghost fleet executed their next move. The human ships didn't attack the Corexian defense sphere. Instead, they created a series of overlapping gravity fields that existed partially out of phase with normal spacetime. The effect was like watching reality itself fold inside out. By the first crystal, Zarkax's tactical officer whispered, "They're not using quantum fields at all. They're manipulating the underlying fabric of space itself." The Corexian defensive formation began to break apart as their ships were pulled in multiple dimensional directions simultaneously. Their quantum fields, designed to defend against energy and matter, were useless against distortions in spacetime itself. Fascinating, Elena remarked, monitoring the data streams. They actually achieved quantum supremacy in their technology, but never considered what existed beneath quantum mechanics. They built up, while we built down and sideways. The Corexian fleet's response was desperate and spectacular. Thousands of ships fired every weapon they had, turning space into a storm of quantum energy and plasma. But humanity's gravity manipulation technology simply redirected the attacks through dimensional shortcuts, causing the Correction fleet to effectively attack itself. They still think this is about firepower, Chen said, shaking her head. They don't understand that we're not fighting the same kind of war they are. Elena watched as more Correction ships succumbed to gravitational weapons they couldn't defend against. It's not their fault, really. They followed a logical technological progression: quantum mechanics, unified field theory, dark energy manipulation. They just never imagined someone would look at physics and say, what if we try something completely different? On the bridge of the eternal dawn, Zarkax watched his mighty fleet being systematically dismantled by forces he couldn't comprehend. These weren't the primitives they had observed for centuries. This was something else entirely. A species that had developed along such a different path that their very understanding of warfare and technology was alien to the Corrections. "Send the signal," he finally ordered, his crystalline voice cracking. All ships prepare for emergency temporal translation. We must warn the Imperium." But even as he gave the order, he realized the humans had predicted this too. His ship's quantum drives weren't just disabled. They were trapped in a web of dimensional anchors that made faster-than-light travel impossible. The greatest fleet in Correction history was about to learn its final lesson about underestimating humanity. And in the depths of Earth's oceans, humanity prepared to reveal the full extent of their capabilities, not just to defeat this invasion, but to ensure no one else would ever make the mistake of judging human technology by their visible achievements alone. Evolution's edge. The battle that was supposed to be a simple conquest had become something else entirely, a revelation that would reshape the galaxy's understanding of technological development. The remnants of the Correction fleet hung in space, their mighty ships now little more than elaborate traps for their own crews, caught in gravitational fields that defied their understanding of physics. Commander Zarkax stood in the ruins of his command center, watching the last of his fleet's defensive options fail. The humans hadn't just defeated them. They had rendered the most advanced technology in the known galaxy obsolete. Through the quantum communication network, he could hear the desperate calls of his surviving ships, their crews facing weapons that seemed to break the very laws of physics. In the underwater command center, General Chen and Dr. Santos prepared for the final phase of humanity's response. "Are you sure about this?" Elena asked, looking at the activation sequence for their last revelation. Showing them this much might be unnecessary. "They need to understand," Chen replied, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. "Not just these invaders, but anyone else watching from the shadows. Humanity isn't just another technological civilization. We're something they've never encountered before." The quantum ghost fleet moved into its final formation, surrounding the remaining Correction ships. But instead of attacking, they began generating a new type of field, one that made the previous gravity manipulation look primitive by comparison. What are they doing now?" Zarkax demanded, watching reality itself seem to ripple around his fleet. The answer came in another transmission from Earth. "Your understanding of physics is impressive, but limited. You see reality as a quantum framework, built on predictable patterns and energies. We saw it differently. We saw it as clay to be molded, as a canvas for whatever we could imagine. Your technology masters the rules. Ours changes them." The space around the Correction fleet began to transform. It wasn't just gravity being manipulated now. It was the fundamental constants of physics themselves. In carefully controlled bubbles, the speed of light changed, quantum states shifted, and causality itself became negotiable. "Impossible," Zarkax's science officer screamed, his crystalline form vibrating with stress. "They're changing the fundamental constants. They're rewriting physics itself." Elena watched the readings with professional satisfaction. "This is why we developed differently," she explained to her staff. "Every other civilization built their technology by understanding the laws of physics and working within them. We looked at those same laws and asked what if we could change them instead. The demonstration was brief but decisive. In controlled spaces around the Correction fleet, humanity showed their true capability. The ability to create localized regions where the very rules of reality could be rewritten. It wasn't just advanced technology. It was something that broke the Correction's entire understanding of what was possible. Enough. Zarkax finally transmitted, his once proud voice now humble. We surrender. The Imperium surrenders. Chen's response was measured but firm. Your surrender is accepted. But understand this. We've known about your Imperium for centuries. We tracked your observation posts, decoded your transmissions, and prepared accordingly. We chose to let you think us primitive because it suited our purposes. That ends today. The gravity field holding the Correction ships relaxed slightly, but remained in place. Belena's instruments confirmed what they had suspected. Other alien observation posts throughout the solar system were powering down, their crews no doubt rushing to report what they had witnessed. You don't understand. Zarkax transmitted, his message tinged with something like awe. The Imperium is the most advanced civilization in known space. Our technology is the pinnacle of quantum engineering. But you're not just more advanced. You're something else entirely. We're human, Chen replied simply. We evolved as both predator and prey, learned to think in ways your species never needed to. When we looked at the universe, we didn't just see rules to be followed. We saw possibilities to be explored. Your civilization chose to climb the mountain of technological achievement. We chose to reshape the mountain itself. The aftermath of the battle would reshape galactic civilization. The Correction Imperium, once the undisputed master of known space, had been humbled not just by superior firepower, but by a completely different approach to science and warfare. Humanity hadn't just defended Earth. They had demonstrated that technological progress wasn't a linear path to be followed, but a vast space of possibilities to be explored. As the surviving Correction ships were escorted to a containment area near Mars, Elena turned to General Chen. What happens now? Chen smiled slightly. Now we show the galaxy that humanity is ready to take its place among the stars. Not as another civilization bound by the conventional rules of physics and warfare, but as something new. Something that looks at the impossible and asks why not. In the deep silence of space, the quantum ghost fleet resumed its hidden positions, disappearing once again into what other civilizations dismissed as background noise. Earth continued its seemingly primitive existence, its true capabilities once again concealed beneath a carefully maintained facade of technological simplicity. But the galaxy would never be the same. The story of how humanity defeated the greatest fleet in known space would spread, carrying with it a crucial lesson. Never assume that technological progress follows a single path. Sometimes, the most dangerous civilizations aren't the ones that climb the highest. They're the ones that choose to climb a different mountain entirely. The end.